This week on The Signal.
Teen wrestler. Meet the city's youngest wrestler and watch her first fight at home.
Lighthouses by Air, celebrating a Nova Scotia legacy.
And African Heritage Month. It's starting off strong.
Welcome to The Signal. I'm Sara Connors.
And I'm Guillaume Lapointe-Gagner, and we're coming at you from the 200-year-old historic farmers market in Halifax.
And our first stories are coming from, well, the reporter's right here in front of you.
And Sara has our top story this week with a young woman who's making a name for herself in the Halifax wrestling community. But she might want to finish high school first.
Madison Miles is the only professional female wrestler in Halifax, and she's only 16 years old. Miles has wrestled all over Canada, but tonight is her first match in her hometown at the Halifax Forum.
It's actually pretty exciting. I have a lot of family and friends that are here. So.
Wrestling is a family affair for Miles. Miles' dad films local shows and her mom works the concession stand. Miles has been hanging around wrestling since she was 5, but she just started fighting last year. Professional wrestling is unregulated in Halifax. It's common for males and females of all ages to fight each other. This might make most parents uncomfortable, but Miles' parents are supportive.
We plan our vacations around wrestling, like everything is wrestling. Everybody, there's not one wrestler in the Maritimes that doesn't know her.
This is the fight Miles came for, but she didn't get any punches in. Then she fought in another, but it was also not a success.
It didn't go quite as well as I planned that it would have, but I wanted to prove that I'm here for a reason and that I'm willing to go up against the big guys. So.
But fans were still impressed by her determination.
Maddie's awesome. I know her as the ring announcer. I've seen her wrestle before. She's awesome, and I think she's going to be good.
That slap probably didn't feel very good, but she took it.
And Miles didn't have to win to be a star in her parents' eyes.
She did great, and now she's destined to be a superstar.
So in April, Miles will be heading to Las Vegas, where she'll be going to a wrestling seminar, and she'll be learning from some wrestling legends. For The Signal, I'm Sara Connors. They call themselves roller girls, and they are hardcore. Guillaume checked out an initiation that includes bruises, broken bones, and lots of fun.
They tie up their laces, slip on their protective gear, and away they go. Round and round the oval. These girls are training for roller derby.
Derby 101. We have our jammers, one per team. Their whole goal is to skate as fast as they can around the track. They get points for opposing team members that they pass. And on the other side of that, we have your blockers. So that's 4 per team, 8 total. And their whole job is to slow down or stop that opposing jammer.
These girls are part of the Fresh Meat Group. No, that's not the name of a team full of butchers. It's what they call beginners. Being a beginner can have its challenges. Jessica Wenzel knows that firsthand. She sprained her ankle during training.
I was skating and practicing shifting my weight, and I shifted a little too far, and then my ankle kind of twisted under itself, and I went down, and it didn't feel very good.
She's not alone. Some people have even broken their bones.
Someone spoke and I turned to listen, and I just went backwards, twisting my arm as I fell, and kept going for about another 45 minutes until I realized arm wasn't working anymore.
One thing that's a big part of our learning process is getting back up after you're falling down. And sometimes that can be maybe with a little bit of sting in your butt.
Oh yeah?
A hard fall won't stop these girls. Their passion for the game keeps them coming back.
It's fun. It's addictive. It's roller derby.
For The Signal, I'm Guillaume Lapointe-Gagner.
A traditional Nova Scotian symbol is the object of one man's passion, and he wants to bring that passion to the rest of the world. He's using modern technology to light the way. Rebecca Brown has the story.
French Point Lighthouse at Musquodoboit Harbor. a range light that guides vessels entering the narrow channel, and another beacon for Larry Payton's Lighthouse project. The drone hobbyist is putting together a video compilation of all 175 lighthouses in Nova Scotia. He believes the province should show a greater appreciation for these cultural symbols. Payton's captured 48 lighthouses so far, but he and his colleague are facing setbacks, thanks to Mother Nature.
Weather tends to be the biggest thing for us. Today we got sun, so it's great, no precipitation. The wind was supposed to be down, but now we're on site and we figure it's gusting probably to about 25 or 30 kilometers an hour, maybe a little bit higher. That causes some issues for the drone. And the biggest problem today ended up being temperature.
Temperatures reaching -20 caused the drone's battery to freeze, ultimately grounding the flight at Spry Bay. But a trip out is never wasted. Seeing the condition of each lighthouse gives Payton more reason to make a return trip.
I mean, this is part of it. This is our second time at this one. The other time was too windy, and we'll be back a third time until we get it.
Several lighthouses in the province are in desperate need of repair. The drone guys hope aerial footage will highlight their need for preservation. Payton uploads videos from the field to his social media under the name No Kaioi Drone Guys, which in Hawaiian means the best.
We chose it because of the Hawaiian ideology that they're so in tune with the land that they believe if they take care of the land will take care of them. And I think ultimately that's what we're trying to do with capturing these landscapes and these lighthouses, is to see the land for what it is and to capture it in its natural beauty and sort of to capture this old technology with new.
With over 100 kilometers logged on his drone and more to come, Payton hopes to see a better lighthouse route that includes all 175 beacons. For The Signal, I'm Rebecca Brown.
After the break, a new take on an ancient tradition, Celtic clothing.
And we'll see how Chinese New Year's is being celebrated in Halifax. Welcome back to The Signal. A fashion designer is making Celtic-inspired clothing, and for her, it's personal. Aya Al-Hakim has the story.
Veronica Mikajcik is working on her new collection of Celtic-inspired fashion for women.
I come from a long line of Scottish ancestors, and growing up there was always a way for men to wear their family tartan, but there wasn't really a good solid way for women to wear it.
Tartan is not plaid. It represents the clan of different Celtic families.
So I'm a MacIsaac, and MacIsaacs traditionally belong to the MacDonald clan. This is ancient MacDonald of Clan Ranald. So this is what we would have traditionally worn for the last couple hundred years. But in the last sort of decade or so, people have designed a MacIsaac tartan. My mother is really the reason why I'm doing anything that I'm doing. She was a seamstress, and she taught me how to sew when I was 4. And I've been sewing ever since. She's also the kilt maker. My parents own a kilt making business. So she's the one that really got me into this whole tartan kind of side of things. And she taught me everything I know. So she's my teacher and my muse, I would say.
MacIsaac's new collection will be launched in May.
It will be different from the last couple for sure in terms of their modernity. There'll be a lot sort of edgier.
All this doesn't mean she's not a businesswoman, and hopes her designs will sell outside the Celtic community too. For The Signal, I'm Aya Al-Hakim.
In the dead of winter, it may not seem like there's much to do, but there are all kinds of events going on for African Heritage Month. Sarah Ray reports on its opening night.
African Heritage Month's opening night Thursday was just one of many events this February pulling Black history forward. Bernadette Hamilton Reed, who performed a libation ceremony to honor ancestors, says African Heritage Month is necessary to educate Nova Scotians.
The schools don't teach it enough, so I need to be able to celebrate it and share it with other people.
African Heritage Month is held every year in February and aims to celebrate and share African history and culture.
But it's important that we as a people of African descent have an opportunity to share our history, our culture, and our stories with the broader community.
Tracy Jones Grant and Crystal Mulder of the Black History Month Association introduced this year's theme, the No. 2 Construction Battalion, a segregated unit in World War I that many African Nova Scotians fought for.
The members of the No. 2 Construction Battalion fought in a war where they were not welcome, where they had to prove themselves as warriors to be able to tell their story, to be able to ensure the freedoms of their people at home.
Lynn Jones's grandfather was one of the many people who fought to be able to fight for his country.
And he ended up being a decorated war hero.
His story landed him on this year's poster, though he didn't fight for the No. 2 Construction Battalion, but another regiment formed around the same time. Jones says it's important to keep his memory and the memories of all African Nova Scotians alive.
People who don't know their history are doomed to remain in the past and not move forward.
The opening night celebrations also featured speeches from people including Mayor Mike Savage and Minister Tony Ince, and performances by young community members. African Heritage Month events will be held through February and are listed on the Halifax Public Library's website. For The Signal, I'm Sara Ray.
This weekend marks Chinese New Year, and according to the Zodiac, it's Year of the Monkey. Maya Kowalski went to Pier 21 for an early celebration.
Monkeys are intelligent, quick-witted, and lively, and this year's cause for celebration for Chinese New Year at Pier 21.
But I came here to ask everyone one question. What does Chinese New Year mean to you?
Chinese New Year is like a combination of New Year, Thanksgiving Day. It's a family together event, and for Chinese New Year, that's the most important day for all Chinese people around the world. And today we're going to present some very traditional Chinese instrument performers. Like as you see here, we have what's called the guzheng, and we will have erhu, and that's pretty like typical traditional Chinese music. It's have over 4,000 years history.
But it wasn't just about music and dancing.
It's spring, it's new life, it's hope after the winter.
Well, the new year is a new start. It reminds me of my identification.
It's when I was young, every whole family will get together. But actually, it means a lot when I go to Halifax because it's far away from home. So you can feel more things than before. Reunion is one of the very most important things for us. That means a new start. You say goodbye with your past and start with the new things. That's very special things.
New condos are popping up all over the city's north end, but some members of the community are worried about being pushed out. Emma Jones has more.
Daryl King is a co-chair of Acorn Halifax. It's been a year since King and members of other North End community groups lost the fight for St. Patrick's Alexander School, a building they hope to turn into a community hub. Now it's been turned over to condo developers.
It's a great loss to the people who've been here long-term in this area, who grew up here, and by doing this and taking it away from the community, it's like ripping a part of the soul out of the community.
This is just one example of what the groups describe as gentrification, or the moving in of middle or high-income people to once affordable neighborhoods. King says it's happening all over the North End. He worries that the neighborhood he now calls home will soon belong to someone else. That's why members of the North End community got together last week to share struggles and make a plan to make sure that as the neighborhood changes, affordable housing isn't left out. Ultimately, the night brought more questions and fears than it did plans.
We have long-standing families here in this community, and they're being uprooted. What happens to these people? Where do these people go?
It's your own personal human rights issue. How are you going to stand up with your own constitution here in Canada today? Is it going to work for me now?
The meeting had an undertone of urgency. They decided moving forward would mean not protest, but collaboration between community members, city planners, and developers.
We, the people, need to have a voice. We need to be the ones that sing to our government. This is what we want.
Councillor Jennifer Watts says gathering to talk about displacement is important, especially as the city develops its new project called the Centre Plan. Concrete steps, she says, will require the groups to get to know the documents surrounding land use.
It's very dry and boring, but it has a tremendous impact. So it's important for people to understand what the impact of the changes will be.
King and other panelists from the meeting say the night was empowering, but that real change will only come from further action. For The Signal, I'm Emma Jones.
After the break, we'll learn about the Year of the Pulses and what a pulse even is.
And then this newscast is taking a dramatic turn with a tragic Greek play. Welcome back to The Signal. Watch for a new food trend sprouting up this year. The United Nations has designated 2016 as the International Year of the Pulses.
No, not heartbeats. Pulses are things like dried beans, peas, lentils, and chickpeas. Zoe DeMarco has more on the humble pulse and why it may be about to get famous.
As a vegetarian, Tess McCutcheon is a big fan of dried legumes, such as beans, peas, chickpeas, and lentils.
I love being a vegetarian because I love the way it makes me feel. I especially love certain vegetarian staples like beans, all sorts of beans, and different legumes.
Each year, the United Nations chooses a cause or product to highlight. This year, it's pulses. They were picked because of their high nutritional value. 100 grams of these black beans has the same amount of protein as a piece of beef, minus the fat. Pulses grow in almost 200 countries, and they're cheap, giving them great potential to help the fight against world hunger. A whole month into the year, though, and most people have still never even heard of them.
Nope. Never heard of them before.
No, I don't.
I do not.
But at this organic food store, pulses are some of their best-selling products. People buy them in bulk and keep them in the cupboard because they last so long. But that's not news to Tess.
I'm super excited. It's the Year of the Pulse, so hopefully my love for beans will catch on.
The last time the UN designated a food year was in 2013, and they set their sights on quinoa. It resulted in soaring prices and a worldwide demand for the South American grain. For The Signal, I'm Zoe DeMarco.
A local neuroscience lab is using mobile apps for research, and kids are helping them do it. Sara has the story.
These kids are having fun, and they're helping their dad do research, too. Antoine Tremblay works at Dalhousie University Neurocognitive Imaging Lab. The lab is using mobile apps to collect children's voices.
So the child plays the game, and after a few, 2 or 3 mini games, then a word pops up with it's an image really, and the child is asked to say what that image is. And then, so we record that.
The lab is collecting children's voices for a series of educational apps it's developing. The apps help children read and even help them learn a second language. Le cochon. Caitlin Tagarelli works with Tremblay. She says the lab needs children's voices because the apps won't recognize adult voices.
Because their pitch is different, they kind of talk differently, they say words a little bit differently than adults do. Their language isn't quite as developed.
The lab has collected 32 children's voices from across North America so far. It hopes to have 100 voices by February. Tagarelli says educational mobile apps like these have the potential to change the way literacy is taught around the world.
When you talk about going to more remote places or developing countries, it's actually in some ways cheaper to get these mobile devices to people than it is to get teachers and some of the proper real infrastructure that we'd like to have.
So once the lab finishes collecting all the voices in February, they'll start analyzing them. That means taking every child's age, gender, and every individual word they've said. For The Signal, I'm Sara Connors.
Theater and jury duty. They don't have much in common, but they merge in a play at Dalhousie, and the audience gets to call the shots. Sarah Poco has the story.
This is a story that's over 2,000 years old. It has the ingredients of a classic Greek tragedy: betrayal, revenge, and of course, death. Oresteia was written in 458 BC by Greek tragedy writer Aeschylus. It is the oldest intact Greek tragedy that is a trilogy in the world.
I think it's great. I think it really shows how the plays of olden times, the themes still match today and they're still quite relatable and we can still learn from them.
But Alice McLean has rewritten the ancient tale of Orestes with a twist. During the show, the audience plays a jury and decides the fates of a character. This means each show will have a different ending, depending on who is in the audience.
And there's a decisive moment at the end where everybody gets to decide on the big question of the end of the play.
I think the whole purpose is that we get real conversations started, and that it's not like, oh, justice in the case of this play is this. It's like, what is actually just? And whatever the audience brings to the surface will prove as actual evidence for how the play should end.
McLean says the play is not just a performance, but also an ethical challenge to the audience.
What is the right thing to do in a situation like this? What is justice? Did we make the right decision? Did we make the wrong decision? I think if people leave asking those kinds of questions, then it means we did our job. And if people leave thinking, why did I bother going to that, then we haven't done our job.
The audience can start sentencing when the show opens on February 9th at the David McMurray Studio at Dalhousie University. For The Signal, I'm Sara Poco.
Well, that's it for our show this week. For more local stories, tune into the Radio Room live on 88.1 CKDU. That's at 5 p.m., Monday through Thursday.
And check out our daily online news site at signalhfx.ca.
Tune in next week for our last show of the season, where we'll see some refugees adapting to life in Canada and the winter sports that come with it.
And Valentine's Day, we'll have the scoop.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of The Signal.
I'm Sara Connors.
And I'm Guillaume Lapointe-Gagner.